tse di motlho ga di se kgantsi sa bonkoto nkhumise le matumo le pheloebo ko bogolo motho wa bo mogobjane ke tletse bankgeli ba ntla ka dithoko ba tshaba ge nka phamola motho ka mo tsenya bodibeng ba bo serake le nkoto ke motsei ke tsaya mollo molloisana ke loisa pitsana matlala tlatsa difalana tladi mothwana tshedi sa morago itshilo ke a sila.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So basically this poem acknowledges all my paternal and maternal ancestors, all sides. So when I read this, it's an equivalent of all protocols observed.
And like when that's your GPS, that's your barcoded ID. Maybe you know what? Let's start there before we even get to the graduation. For you to be so grounded and clear in who you are, who instilled this in you? Where was this knowledge of self fed? How did your background shape who you are?
I think it started before I was conceived. It's one of the agreements that I possibly made in this lifetime, that this is what I'm going to do in this lifetime. I'm going to be rooted in whatever culture I'm born into. Because I could have chosen to be born into a culture in Hungary or Czechoslovakia or, China. But I chose to be born in Africa.
Yes.
And be rooted in Setswana and other cultures that my lineages come from. And I always say that I can't claim that I'm 100% this, because I have no idea who my ancestors met, in their journeys. Who they sex with, who they made babies with. I have no idea, the fullness of the DNA that is running through my veins. So this was conceived before my conception. And I chose two amazing parents to come through. My father, who passed in 2014, Lebo Mutsei, who was the best dad ever. And I think being a Black woman who's also raised by a loving Black man adds to that. You kind of get rooted. And my mother is a lioness. And interestingly, she grew up in Lady Selborne. She's a township girl.
Oh, wow.
And she was married by a village country boy. And the story is, when my father saw my mother the first time, he knew. He said that he knew that this was going to be the mother of my children.
Wow.
But my mother had to juta her, by telling a lie that he's from Sophiata, when in fact he's from Khomukhom, So my mother came in, the child of the Gladys, she's smart. I often think that had my mother grew during that time, our time, where we write, we are free to become creatives.
Yes.
I think my mother would be at that level.
Wow.
So her role is, she's an archivist. She writes down everything. She documents the family trees. She knows kind of generations of our people. So being raised by both my father and my mother has been kind of something that helped to cement me. Then the additional thing is my aunt, who is commonly referred to as Memoroma. Her real name is Kubele Motsei, who was born into Motaung family, who received the gift of healing
Mm,
and who passed on, the baton to me reluctantly so as I was growing up as a girl. I kept on saying, but I was never consulted, you
mm,
know, I wasn't consulted about this. So by being born into a family of healers, my aunt being a healer, and my father and my mother playing a role, and my grandmother, Matsilo, that I'm named after.
mm,
So yeah, this is basically the foundation for me. That's what makes me who I am in this lifetime. So being grounded and rooted, I think it's part of the agreement that I made when I
mm,
was born. There's a saying that when we are born, we know what why we are born, but as soon as we get out of our mother's bodies, we forget. So
mm.
there's a saying that we spend the rest of our lives trying to remember, Kunja, why did I come to this planet? You know. Um, so I was lucky to be born into a family that reminds me, even when they don't tell me, but by virtue of how, what they teach me. I was lucky to be born into that family that is a constant reminder as this is the agreement that you made when you were born.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's quite idyllic actually. It's you got such wonderful elements from our cultures, many of which are things that were denied to some people, in the same era. But so many people had been convinced to turn their backs on practicing indigenous spirituality, especially previous generations, for survival, to be able to get a job, to be able to assimilate, to be able to, get a place in the city for whatever reason, to be able to just move forward with your life as a Black person. So to get that kind of grounding at that time is incredible, and it makes sense that this has informed the direction that your life has taken, and also what we are celebrating today. Apart from your graduation, which we are still going to come back to, we are celebrating the birth of Africa Ikalafe Pluriversity. I love that name. Please,
Yeah.
can you break down the name?
Um, it's easy. If university is one way of knowing. The philosophical underpinnings of a university originate from the premise that knowledge comes from the West.
Yes.
Um, and therefore, even though that's changing now, there's not much that we learn in universities that reinforces the greatness and the beauty of who we are.
Mm,
And in fact, what university does sometimes, it becomes instrumental in making us disregard our knowledges, and
mhm,
look down upon our knowledges. So if you take all of that background, the grounding that I have had, and the fact that I was born in a family of healers, and the fact that my aunt passed on, the healing gift to me, I was. It makes sense that I would talk about a pluriverse of knowledges. So
mm,
essentially, what Africa Kalafe is saying is kind of encapsulated in one of the teachings of my aunt in this book. Find your star and live your purpose.
mm.
And in simple terms, my aunt says, "Botlhale ba Africa Botswamo." You remember when we were growing up, there was this cliche that Karasama Sotho ke lekgoho,
Yes, yes. But
right?
no, people are saying that even now. I mean,
Yeah.
with the
But basically pluriversity says se Karasama Sotho ke Mosotho.
yes.
This is what the pluriversity, and therefore we need to dig, we need to reclaim, we need to preserve our knowledges. But in the preservation of our knowledges, I always kind of send out a caution that we shouldn't also romanticize, our culture as the be all, as like, something that's going to solve everything, because every culture has got the negative and the positive.
Mm.
And every culture, has some oppressive elements to it, because as the human race, we evolve, we become more and more enlightened over the years. And some of the cultures do not evolve with our enlightenment. So
Hey.
as we preserve whatever we preserve, we must look at how certain cultural practices are oppressive, you know. So a pluriversity is meant to kind of celebrate our knowledges. So whatever we do, whether it's the online course that we'll talk about later, whether it's about modules that I do in Stellenbosch, there's a module I do on indigenous knowledge and sustainable development. Everything is kind of threading in our knowledge.
Mm.
And we refer to Africa Ikalafe as a land-based institute for healing, for learning, for living. And the argument is land is the greatest teacher.
Mm.
So with land dispossession, we lost a lot of knowledge. So as we return to land, we have to also at the same time heal our relationship with land as our teacher. So there's a lot of unlearning that happens in some of the Africa Ikalafe programs.
You're already digging in so beautifully into what is happening with your website and these new products that you've given birth to. I think let's stick with this because this is going to help us to explain your pluriverse and
Yeah.
and all these threads that combine to make the body of work that is you. On your website you say nature, land, soil, our most nurturing mother. The course that you're offering is directly related to birthing. It's about incorporating indigenous knowledge and indigenous practices back into the birthing process. But it's not just for uh, midwives. It's not just for people who happen to be pregnant. It's not just for medical practitioners. It's for everybody. So, I mean, can we start to unpack what birth means as a metaphor? You say again, nature, land, and soil are our most nurturing mother. Let's start there.
Birth can be, we can talk about birth physiologically, physically, we can talk about birth metaphysically. Uh, and if we are awake, we kind of witness birthing happening around us every day
Yes.
in different forms, right? So essentially, the course, as you have outlined, is also including to understand why we are here. How did we come to a point where birthing is so over medicalized and women's bodies are with machines, and there is a normalized depersonalization of childbirth? It's normalized when you go to hospital. We have to understand the history of biomedical model of birth.
Mm.
How did we come to this place? And therefore, that's why in the course, we also talk about the medical missionaries that landed on the southern tip of Africa.
Mm.
Medical missionaries came not only to administer medicine, but they came also to kind of was to honor the object of the empire.
Mm.
So as a result, by the time the medical missionaries landed in the Cape, they had already gone through a process in Europe where birth has been taken away from women to men. There has already been a process where the state colluded with the church
Mm.
to take away the power of women who carried extensive knowledge of birthing. So, in one of the modules, we look at that history and also how current medicine and current nursing establishments have contributed to the suppression of indigenous knowledge of birthing. If I use myself as an example, one of the shocking things that I found was when I was doing my research, and I came to a point where it speaks about a colonial nursing association. There was a time when you had a colonial nursing association where they send kind of nurses from Europe to the colonies. But there is a list of uniform that they had to take with, like stockings and this kind of a white dress and a coat and a cap. And when I read through that, I realized that when I did my midwifery, my nursing and midwifery, that's exactly what I was wearing
Oh my word.
without knowing where this is coming from.
Hundreds of years later.
Yes,
Wow.
hundreds of years later, uh, and then I was like just shocked. And there's a social anthropologist called Davis Floyd
Mm.
who speaks about um, young women taken from their communities. Let's say this young woman is me. I grew up in a village and in a township. Then I go and do nursing. By that time, I'm still young enough. So my brain is like a sponge.
Mm.
I just absorb everything, you know. And I always look back and says, I probably, as a midwife at that time, I probably spoke negatively to the gogos who came with their daughters to give birth
Sure.
because I was trained to collude with a nation of Western knowledge being superior and authoritative. And this is what the medical establishment does, and the nursing establishment does. There is no, it's changing though. There's very little in the curriculum around indigenous medicine and indigenous nursing processes. So the beginning of the journey
2022 and 2023, there was something ridiculous, like a more than 300% increase in pregnancies of children under the age of 13, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds who are giving birth.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we think of, if we, I mean, we know that a decrease in teenage pregnancies. In fact, women being able to make more autonomous choices around their bodies and birthing is an indicator of development in a society.
Yeah.
It's an indicator that the society is going forward, is progressing. Women have more access to education, they've got more access to resources, they've got more access to information. They start making different decisions around birthing. The fact that we have an increase in child pregnancy, I mean, we are
Yeah.
de-evolving. We're going back. I don't even know back to where, but something is, we are degenerating
Yeah.
in this society, and at a very rapid rate, you know. So back to the point of the ecosystem is dependent on the well-being of the mother and the child, and right now the mother and the child are aware. What is the health status of the mother and the child right now?
Yeah. Obviously, within the medical model, uh, the health of the mother and the child is limited to the physical health
Yes.
because Western medicine defines kind of limited, even though the WHO definition of health is talking about emotional and psychological and spiritual health. But in practice, the medical system is not structured in such a way that it includes emotional, mental, spiritual health.
Mm.
So, if you ask me that question, I would say that even in a place where the maternal mortality meaning that the number of mothers who die during childbirth,
Mm.
or the infant mortality rate, even in a place where the maternal mortality rate and the infant mortality rate are low, you can't argue that those people are healthy if there is no cultural safety. Uh,
Yes.
the one example I can give you, one of the women that I interviewed said that when she was in hospital, nurses were very nice and kind to her. They explained everything, everything that they're doing. But she said, I felt lost because the culture of birthing in hospital is foreign to me. So
Mm.
if you ask her, then she will say, I didn't feel safe. So my cultural and spiritual health was compromised because
Absolutely.
I was taken care of by people who don't understand my cultural and spiritual needs. And even I don't even understand, I probably think that there's no room for such in a hospital. Imagine if
Oh,
the
sorry.
midwives could ask on an intake form, how can I best meet your spiritual needs
Mm.
to a woman who's about to give birth? Imagine this question being asked, and imagine women knowing that there's room for that, in their care. So the health, therefore, is limited, and it's especially because it's defined within the narrow Western medical model.
Absolutely. Birth is a commodity. It's a supply chain, you know. Birth is, and when I gave birth to, I had cesareans with both of my children because I'm the type of person who doesn't dilate. So maybe 200 years ago I would have been someone who died in childbirth. So I'm thankful that cesareans exist. But the pressure that I felt to get on the pipeline of having a Caesar, you
Yeah,
know, And I'm trying, and I mean, this is private healthcare. Even the pressure that I felt from my peers, from other women, professional women, who were like, "What do you mean you want to do natural birth? That cuckoo must render other services. You want to push a baby. A Caesar is seen as a status symbol." And then when I was doing Great Expectations, I presented a pregnancy and parenting show for 5 years. And I got to speak to a lot of midwives and speak to a lot of experts in the early child development, medicine, birthing, gynecology. It was a wonderful experience. One of the alarming things that I learned is that cesarean births, we have one of the highest percentages of
Yeah,
rates of cesarean birth in the
yeah.
world. And a
It's us and
cesarean,
Brazil.
yes, the BRICS countries.
Yeah,
It's us, it's Brazil, Russia, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, these middle developing economies that are where the cesarean is sold to us as kind of like a status symbol, as a high-tech birth, an iPhone birth, you know?
right.
So I want to come back. I come back to a quote where from again from your site where you say, giving birth to a physically healthy baby in an environment that contributes to killing of knowledge of the baby's customs, of the baby's ancestors, is culturally unsafe.
Yeah. This is basically what I said earlier about imagine going to a hospital at the maternity and being asked by, there's a question in the intake form, how can I best meet your cultural and spiritual needs? But midwives can't ask that question because they are not trained to meet those needs. And this is basically what the course is about. This online course is about. It's trying to answer that question. In the end, we'll be able to say, how can we humanize childbirth to a point that we can meet all these needs? And I mean, there's a obstetrician, a French obstetrician, Michel Odent, who says, if you want to change the world, you must change the way babies are born.
Yes.
And that's essentially my thing. Birth, women's bodies, babies are the last, in terms of priority.
Yes.
Every government has got a huge budget for the Department of Military or Defense or
Lebo.
whatever, and the lowest is for women's health. The lowest is for children as well, and that is an indication for us, for me, in terms of how far removed we are. We talk about the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, but the village is sick, right? The village is carrying intergenerational traumas.
The village is depressed. The village is mentally ill.
The village is struggling.
The village has black tags. The village is
Yeah,
poor.
and how is the village going to be able to raise this child? Because the village itself needs parenting. The village itself needs parenting. So those are some of the challenges that we are facing. But the power is that as more of us have knowledge, as we all remember the knowledge that's inside of us, it's going to be easy to create kind of new pockets of villages, right? Where birthing persons can get together as well, as a way of raising their children, meaning that we can start creating small little villages that will add up into a new village, big collective village being created. Once we remember the knowledge, but also once we create space for healing. You said earlier that there's a rise of child pregnancy. I think we shouldn't even say that. We should say that there's a rise of rape.
There's a rise of child rape.
Right? There's a rise of child rape.
Absolutely.
And when there's a rise of child rape, what it means is that we have loads and loads and ways of intergenerational trauma.
Mm.
The 10-year-old mother who's giving birth today has got ancestors before her, and the people kind of in African spirituality, we talk about the departed, the living, and the unborn. The departed need healing.
Mm.
The living need healing. The unborn, therefore, need healing. So, yeah, child rape. Every time I hear about it, I think about that cycle.
Mm.
How we are continuously contributing to the trauma that we pass on to the unborn.
The things that you are saying are resonating with the audience. I see Tumelo Moreri saying they are traumatizing our wombs, indeed. And
Yeah.
Anisha says, that the village needs parenting. I mean, that we can unpack, spend the whole night unpacking that. The issues that come out of the work that you are doing, just conceptually, from wombs to parenting to childhood to birthing, these are triggering issues for many people.
Yeah.
Whether you are a parent, whether you have given birth or haven't given birth, whether you self-identify as a woman or a mother or not, um, the benefits, or the benefits of going into unpacking the trauma of your womb and of your lineage. For somebody who has not embarked on that work, who is terrified of it because the trauma is too big, how do you explain to someone that the necessity of this work?
How I go about it is I would start off by giving out an invitation to reflect on our childhood conditioning.
Mm.
As girls, as boys, as queer, what shaped our view of ourselves, the messages that we have been told when we were growing up.
Mm.
And messages could be about your body, it could be about your behavior, it could be about the games you play, it could be about, your manner of dress, all those things. And then the second level is to come to a point where you started to menstruate. What were the messages? What are the current messages around menstruation? And we kind of also look at the origins of that, the notion of the woman's body as filthy, as dirty. And historically, we know that, women were not allowed to be ordained as priests because they menstruate. But that man who's ordained as a priest could very well be a child rapist.
Sure.
But because he's a man, then it's okay for him to be ordained as a priest. So we look at childhood conditioning, we look at some of the rites of passage, as I have said, menstruation,
I mean, how do you feel about the cultural practice? Because there are some healers who say that they don't want to consult with a menstruating woman, or that you shouldn't perform certain ritualistic functions while you are menstruating. How do you feel about that?
It depends on the ritual.
Okay.
My view is that it will depend on the specific ritual.
Okay.
There are some ritual that works best when you are menstruating. Why?
Wow.
Because you are directly connected, to the stress. So you can download things easily. You are connected. And that's why there used to be, in the past, there would be, I can't remember the names that they called them, when you are menstruating, you'd go in the wild and hang out with other women who are menstruating,
Yes.
right? And if the Kosi, the king wants advice, the best people to go and seek advice, menstrual hearts, yes. The
Menstrual
best people
hearts.
you would go and seek advice from would be the occupants of the menstrual hearts, because they are directly connected. And yes, the shame that we carry around menstruation. I always wanted to do a a piece called "Is That Blood on Your Skirt?"
Oof.
Right?
Triggering.
Yeah,
Yo, Bantu. That's like the
yeah,
worst. To be
yeah,
found with your menstrual blood showing
yeah,
out during the
yeah,
people, as if half of the population has not experienced the same thing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so there's all of those levels that we are engaging in. And because the traumas have been accumulating for centuries,
Yes.
I always feel that every generation must do what they can. Every generation has got its own struggles. Every generation has its own powers. uh, my daughter has got her view of the world, which may be different from my view of the world.
Mhm.
So then the challenge is, how do we then combine the two views as a way of saying, this is where we are at and this is where we are moving forward. So there's a need as well for intergenerational dialogues about the
Yes.
situation, about your body, about sex, about sexuality, all of those things.
Well, I mean, this is one of the things that we spoke about earlier when in preparation for this conversation is that the womb is not a static thing. Your womb is an evolving space. Um, it's probably taken me my entire lifetime to understand, to truly understand the power of my womb as a portal, as a creative portal, as a place that links me not just to all of my ancestors, but that also links me to creation itself. The womb is the ultimate manifester. It makes something out of nothing every day. And that's what we do. That's what feminine energy does. But we're not taught this as power.
No.
Instead, wombs are degraded, wombs are broken. I mean, and in various stages of life, the if we're talking about an increase in child rape, the girl child womb is broken. The adolescent womb is broken. The wombs of young women are broken. The fertile womb, the PCOS womb, the aging womb, the womb in the trans body that is dealing with body dysphoria, the womb of the crone that is told over and over again, oh, ogogo, you're not
Yeah.
sexual, you're not sexually viable anymore, you're not of value anymore. So how do we, in these different stages of uh, womb existence that we are in, how do we begin to find healing? How if you've never approached this, if you've never even thought about doing this, because so many women are dealing with issues like, fibroids. Women are dealing with issues of horrible, terrible, long, extended births. Women we are over medicated. We are like lab rats, and completely disconnected from our bodies at the same time. So
Yeah.
if you've never been able to connect to the power of your own womb, where do you start?
I'd like to start off by what you have just said. We are disconnected from our bodies. It is, if you look at it, it's a survival tactic.
Yo.
You have to survive. You are forced to be disconnected from your own body. I'll
Hmm.
give you an example. you are pregnant. And this is a short story that I wrote as part of my thesis. I tell a story about a woman who was traveling to a hospital in the back of a van with the matriarch of the family. And when they got there, they invited the woman to come in and be examined. The matriarch got up because she also wanted to be in the room, and the midwife looked at her, and I talk about, even though she has not learned the alphabets, she can read energies. The way that the midwife looked at her, she knew that the message was, this is not your place. You are not allowed in the space, right? And therefore, if you think about how you derobed, you are derobed, you are connected to all kinds of things, and giving birth on your back, and sometimes in a lithotomy position, with all of that. It's
Which are
like,
not natural positions. This is not the
no,
position that
it's
the body
not.
wants to give birth
No,
in.
no, all of that. So women talk about leaving their bodies
Yes.
at that moment because they can't deal with how they're feeling in the way that they have been derobed. But there's another kind of leaving your body, which is natural, which is interesting. I heard it from one of the elders in first time. I heard it from one of the elders in Pumalanga, who said that giving birth is such a powerful thing. There's sometime when you are about to push the baby out, you have to go through altered consciousness.
Yeah. And it's true. There's that point where life and death, it's a threshold, and
Yeah,
there's that point where time is suspended, and it's you and your baby and
yeah.
God, and that's
And I
it.
heard I heard that from an elder in who's never set foot in a formal school. I don't use
Wow.
the word she's not educated. She is educated. Uh, but she has not set foot in a conventional school. And then I went and searched altered consciousness during childbirth. There's professors around the world who've written about that.
Wow.
And the elder in Pumalanga was saying, midwives must be taught about this, because at the moment when you go through a period of Kairos time, where you lose it, that's where the birth workers need to hold you. But
Mm.
that's exactly where you could be abused. Let's say early stages of labor, you ask that you don't want to have an episiotomy. What the obstetrician might do is wait for the Kairos time for a cut, because at that point you will not have the power to resist.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So the disconnection is both from our conditioning and also the way that the medical system has been structured. And all of this comes from how before the 17th century, birds were at home. And
Mm.
from like the late 17th century, when Descartes introduced like the separation between the body and the mind and the soul, that's the time when pregnancy was described as pathological or a medical condition. And then a woman's body was like a defective machine.
Mm.
So the notion of the woman's body as a defective machine and pregnancy being a pathology or a medical condition together, they contributed to the medicalization of childbirth that we see today. Obviously, then a lot of other factors came into play. I'm just kind of summarizing.
Yes, 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 yes. But I mean, also, it's important what you're saying, because what Europeans did to, or what our colonizers did to the continent and to themselves, they
Yeah,
hunted their
yeah,
witches. They're so-called witches. They
yeah,
killed their midwives. They took birth out of the hands of their healers and put it in the hands of the church and the medical fraternity. They killed the people who were responsible for maintaining that connection to between the people and the earth and the cosmos. That logic, it was violently eradicated in
yeah,
Europe.
yeah,
And then they came and used the same tools on us.
yeah. I mean, bell hooks is very clear on this. Bell hooks says if you want to dehumanize another, you have to first dehumanize yourself.
Mm.
So they themselves dehumanized childbirth. And when they came, when we exported the model, we exported all of it,
Mm.
all of the notion but also one thing that I wanted to say earlier is a corporate womb. In all the
Hey,
in all the wombs that you describe is a corporate womb.
there's a
Uh,
corporate boom.
I
And Black
was
people are suffering in corporates.
yeah, I was in a retreat last year in Pumalanga, which was facilitated by Vangile. And I see Pumzile. Yes, Pumzile and I were talking about the corporate womb, and we learned how to make it in corporate. You have to control how your womb functions, right? And someone is saying you even tell your body to menstruate on Friday, and that by Sunday you should be done, so that when you go to work, this is what should happen. When you are giving birth, you have to be worried all the time about going back, So the corporate womb as well. Pumzile and I spoke about doing a conversation around it, and maybe we should do it sometime this year, because she has been in the corporate for a long time.
Mm.
And there were many others. There were many others who were in that. I remember one of the participants in that retreat was talking about herself as boss lady. But to be boss lady in the corporate space, there's something about your femininity that you have to let go of. There's
Yes.
something about your feminine that you must kill to be able to, because what you are doing is, in terms of like the kind of gender dimension, gender transformation, we're talking about adding more women in position of power, but there is no change in terms of the culture of the institutions. The culture of the institutions remains the same, even in parliament, in corporate, wherever. We're not changing anything, except in parliament in 1994. People like Press Govender got in there and they found that all the toilets were men's toilets with unisex,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they had
Yes.
to build toilets where women can go. We need more than that. I don't know how this is going to happen, because if you look at the state of politics now,
Yeah.
there is even an increasing assertion of patriarchy in politics.
Yes.
Totally increasing violent reintroduction of patriarchy in politics.
Mhm.
So I have no idea how we're going to deal with that. And I'm
No,
sure
we're gonna deal. We're
there are
gonna
women
deal with
who are
it
waiting
because
with us.
the comments are coming. The comments are coming fast and furious, particularly around the corporate womb. We're
Yeah,
giving you corporate womb speak. And Tresha, I feel robbed. I gave birth through C-section out of lack of knowledge and lack of support from family. I resonate with that story too. Humulemo says, so true. The corporate story, so true. Pumzile says, oh yes, the corporate womb. Botsang says, endometriosis, my womb and corporate space is painful. Pumzile Njoko, referring to, I think, the witch hunts in Europe, and she says, absolutely, they were cruel to themselves. First, Tebogo Buntu says, giving birth is not painful. Conditioning of women's bodies is the ones that is painful. Anisha says, girls being shamed for growing breasts too quick or menstruating too early. The policing of women's bodies, which we were speaking about earlier. Young girls being shamed for their body's development and being sexualized because of it. Um, Tariqua says, very young people learn how to boss the womb in school systems. Yeah. On the subject of politics, I want to talk about the rise of the divine feminine. I've seen in so many spaces, especially online spaces, in spiritual communities, people are speaking about this radical shift that we are going through as part of the rise of the divine feminine. So as much as we're seeing the disintegration of
Yeah,
systems, we're seeing the evidence of the collapse
yeah,
everywhere. It's the chaos that we are living in. But what we're also, and Vangi pointed this out to me as well. Vangi Lechantu, shout out to her where she is. She pointed out that we are also not, as much as we are talking about the disintegration and the chaos that we're living through, we're not talking about the ascension. We're not talking about the awakening. We're not talking about how people are becoming multidimensional. But watwasa, people are awakening spiritually. And there's a centering of the divine feminine that is happening.
yeah.
I'd like to get your take on this before we dive into the political and talk about your Phoenix moment. But what is your take on this collapse versus ascension and the rise of the divine feminine?
Yeah, I like the phrase that you are using, evidence of the collapse, right? I'd like
Mm.
us to ponder over that a little bit. Like evidence. We're going through evidence of the collapse.
Mm.
Marianne Williamson will say it's up to you to choose which side of this. Like, is the world a hostile place or is the world a nurturing place?
Mm.
Uh, Once you have made that choice, I think what women and queer people are doing is working on themselves,
Yes.
which means, and I like what you have said, so that we should be aware that the transitioning is happening.
Mm.
The transition is happening. And universe does not allow space for vacuum. So those of us who are aware of what is happening and who are aware that we are called to become, the vanguards of divine feminine, when the moment comes, there should be there shouldn't be a vacuum like
Mm.
in 1994 in South Africa, because the women who ended up in parliament were leaders in civil society. And as soon as they moved to parliament, there was a kind of a vacuum in terms of women's leadership in civil society.
Oh.
So our awareness, therefore, now, it means that in whatever we do, we should create streams of leadership, streams of feminine leadership. I mean, I run a leadership program called She Elephant Leadership. Um, our perception of power that we know now is power over, and we have to change that perception. It should be power with. I kind of crafted the notion of she elephant leadership when I was looking at the herd of elephants in Kruger Park. There was this matriarch who was crossing the road, like ears flapping, and making grants and like saying to the Homo sapiens in their cars, don't even think about it. You just stay there, right? And then there were other matriarchs on the side, and there were matriarchs at the back whose
Mm.
responsibility was to make sure that everyone has crossed. So I looked at that, and that's something that I always remember. So that in that period, there's no pull head down syndrome. All the elephants know that where they are leaders. They lead from where they are. The
Intelligence.
only kind of leadership that we know is leading from the front. You know, that's a patriarchal form of leadership as well. We can introduce a new kind of leadership. And I can't emphasize enough our responsibility as we step out of this webinar. Two things that I want us to follow up on. Another conversation we're on corporate womb. I think it's something that we should also at some point
Yes.
talk about. But
Yes.
another thing that I want to just kind of be aware of is that as we step out, firstly, connect to our power, our divine power,
Mm.
and develop different forms of leadership at different levels, intergenerational forms of leadership, so that the spaces where we speak to girls, the spaces where we speak to young women, the spaces where we speak to mothers, the spaces where we speak to, older women, and the spaces where you speak to elders like us, right? So that conversation has to happen, and somehow what this webinar is doing for me is highlighting the agency,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
this
But also,
kind of spiritual revolution that needs to happen.
but you are actively also creating the pocket that you are speaking about, because here in this webinar there's multiple generations, there's multiple genders, there's perspectives from different parts of the continent and the world, so I appreciate what you are saying, because the power and the tools are truly in our hands. If we can do this from our homes, we can do this anywhere.
Yeah,
I want to, before I open up to the audience, I'd like to talk about this Phoenix moment, and just go into what you mean to me. I mean, we have double the amount of people in the room that we had when we started. So thank you everybody who's joined along the way. Thank you everyone who's with us. We are celebrating tonight the inimitable Dr. Mashile Mutsei, fresh on the heels of the conferring of her doctorate degree. Her graduation was just a couple of days ago, and she is giving birth now to the Africa Ikalafe Pluriversity, and the 6 month 14
webinars.
what would
Yeah,
14 webinars. So over the course of 6 months in this birthing course, you have the opportunity to participate in bi-weekly webinars, and you also have the course of material available to you the entire time. And it is a course for everybody. It's about the integration of indigenous knowledge systems, cultural practices, back into our birthing processes. And it's not a rejection of Western medicine, but
yeah,
it's saying that the two can exist
yeah,
side by side.
yeah,
For me, I mean, you are an activist. You are an organizer who has built organizations from the ground up that are still standing. You are an academic. You are a writer, an intellect par excellence. You are a feminist that constantly challenges what I believe are my boundaries around feminism. Some of the conceptual ideas that you've thrown into my terrain have literally changed the trajectory of my thinking and my being. I mean, I think about a conversation that we had once about the womb as the cave, a natural cave, the formation, the land formation of a cave, that a cave is a womb and that healing work can be done inside caves in order to heal our wombs. I think about also how the work that you have done, one of the most profound things that you have done, at least in my from my vantage point, when I think about what you went through and what you were put through by the misogynists of this country, and for you to then turn around and do healing work with male perpetrators of rape, and male perpetrators of abuse, and recognize that those perpetrators are victims, and that these things do not exist as binaries, that
Yeah.
they're two sides of the same coin. If you don't heal the victim, that victim does become the perpetrator, so you forced me to really confront very difficult concepts, and in this era of fourth wave feminism, in this era where it's so easy to get caught up in the polarizing discourse. It must be all or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We must throw people away. If you mess up, we throw you away. I mean, there isn't an ocean. We live in, one of the most misogynistic places on earth. There isn't an ocean big enough to throw all of the misogynists away. We can't even throw away the misogynists in our own families, in our own households.
Yeah.
So I mean, your work has forced me to really confront how to make my feminism expansive, and that my feminism is inextricably linked to my heart, to my heart's ability to live, to breathe, to have compassion for myself and for others. So I want to thank you, because in seeing you in this moment of glory, for those of us, who know what you have been through, it's not just your triumph, it's our triumph. It shows that we also can overcome anything and everything. We can reinvent, we can recreate, we can recalibrate, that there are no forces that can destroy us, because look at you.
Yeah. Uh, Simple answer. I'm doing. It's kind of weird, but it's a contradiction of sorts. I'm doing all of this for my own healing.
Mm,
That's why I'm doing, because a lot of my work is informed by my own wounds.
mm,
When I started working with men, I was carrying a trauma of being raped as a child.
mm,
When I started in Alex and I started Adapt many years ago, I remember people coming to me saying that you're doing such a brilliant job with your work on GBV. Why don't you include children? I remember just reacting so strongly. At that moment, I had repressed the kind of childhood sexual rape.
mm.
But I remember that there was something that I kind of rejected very strongly. Only later, uh, when I was writing the Kanga and the Kangaroo Code, the moment of rape comes to me at 3 a.m. when I'm writing.
Sure.
And then the question is, what do you do with it? And I
What to do with
remember
it?
my conversation with, do I include it? Do I exclude it? Do I put paper over the cracks? And I remember the conversation I had with my editor that as a writer, readers are smart. Even when you hide something, they're going to detect that something is missing here,
Mm,
right? What did I do with that? I went through intense therapy at that time. And that was my beginning. But the therapy in itself did not go to the root. One time I was with an elder in Venda through divination, and this elder, somebody that I dreamed after my father passed on, and ultimately I met with him. So I always say that my father must have thought, okay, now that I'm going, I'll kind of hand you over to another dad, you know. So I remember doing a divination and the old man saying, something happened to you when you were a child. And until such time that you heal that wound, you will not be able to fulfill your life's mission.
Oh.
And we went through a process of healing. At that point, I was raped by a family member. The condition of the ritual is that if you have courage, you bring the person who raped you.
Oh.
Because the ritual has to involve both of you. But I couldn't do that. And I did that. I did that on my own. And years later, after I almost said my rapist, we should be careful of the language that we use. My rapist is problematic. I'm owning a rapist, you know. So I almost said that. Years later, when this relative who had raped me, after he passed on, that was the time when I could engage him in spirit.
Oh, because now he was spirit.
Yeah, it was kind of easier for me to engage and to complete the loop. I couldn't do that while he was still alive. But with Marumo Fatsi, a project that we did with men, there was one time we were doing a vlog in Rustenburg, and we went to interview an elder. He's amazing. He was on death row at some point, you know, and has done quite a lot. And he was telling a story of raping a young woman when he was young. My childhood sexual wound got triggered during the recording.
Sure.
I was working with my daughter, who was a director at the time, and I remember her saying, cut, cut, cut. By that time, the wounded child in me was the one who was doing the interviews, who was interviewing, right? And because my kids know about this wounded child, when the child came out, they kind of said, whoa, cut, cut, cut. And then we took a walk to process that.
You've discussed this with your children?
Yeah, my kids know.
Wow. Wow. How old were they when you started, when you were transparent about what happened to you?
I mean, they're adults now.
Okay.
And my daughter has been doing a lot of work with me, even as a child. I remember at some point we were in Pumalanga, where we were talking about sex and sexuality with older women. And I remember we were talking about women initiating sex, and the poor thing was there in the group listening. And when we were driving home, she says, yo, Ma, it was so embarrassing, you know.
She had no choice. She had to be a feminist. But back to what you were talking. But back to what you were talking about, because I think this is such an important point. We are not conscious a lot of the time of when we are acting out of our trauma.
Yep. When you are conscious, triggers are okay. Triggers are allowed. But when a trigger comes up, engage with it, right? Not always. You're going to act out, but after acting out, you can come back to say, okay, what do I need to learn? So I'm so much aware of my triggers. And even before I act out, if you're around me, I'm going to tell you that, okay, I'm on trigger mode now. So anything may come out. Right?
I'm on trigger mode.
Anything may come out, but then I know I'm surrounded by people who can hold me. Even as my trigger comes out. I know that I'm surrounded by people who can hold me. But I want to come to that point about time is flying. My God.
Time is flying, but it's great.
I want to come back to the point about the cave.
Yes.
The cave as the womb of the earth. I've always been fascinated by caves. In African spirituality of childbirth, there are some preconception rituals. Maybe you are a young bride, you have not yet conceived, and you could go through a ritual of inviting a soul to come through you
Wow.
long before you conceive. So some of those rituals are done in caves. The elders go with you into a cave. If there's no cave nearby, you could use an ant hill, because an ant hill is a repository
It's
of
also.
ancient knowledge. So the cave is something that has always fascinated me. I mean, there's some people who know that I've always run a program called Conversations with Mawum.
Mm.
And I'm planning another retreat in August
Mm.
on Conversations with Mawum, which is basically going to be the end of the retreat would be drumming in a cave in Pumalanga. So we end the Conversations with Mawum retreat in a cave. We go back into the womb, so to speak,
Mm.
to remember who we are, as powerful beings, and to heal our relationship with power,
Mm.
uh, and to embody it, without feeling that we should reduce our light, embody it. So the cave is always a place to go to, for me at least. I remember at some point with my kids, we went into a cave in Downskull, in the Northern Cape. It's a scary, scary kind of cave, and it's got a river. There I was, gung ho. I was the one who was leading the pack into the cave. Dark. I mean, by the time I came out as quick, and they laughed. They said, when I came out, I was even speaking English, saying, I'm not going in there. So the coconut in me probably came out and said, no, I'm going there. And the elder who was there, Mekirileng, may his soul rest in peace, very soft-spoken, says, Matsilo, you can't be driving all the way from where you come from and not be in the cave. So I had to just be strong enough to a point of even getting in the water that's inside the cave. So just to honor Mother Earth in one way or the other. The sad thing for me that I must mention is that most of us healers who go into nature to do rituals, we leave our trash there.
Yeah, about that.
We leave our trash there.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting.
Bujwala,
It's disgusting.
mabotolo, di kerese, yonke into.
Everything. I would always say, if we are going to do rituals in nature, we should carry a trash bag.
Yes.
Whatever we use or whatever we find there, we take. How do we claim to honor Mother Earth when we trash, Mother Earth like this?
You're touching people, Cindy Dibete, are dead chickens, please.
Yeah.
And you have touched the people with I'm on trigger mode. I think that is going to be, people are going to start using that. And Trisha says she wants it on a mug. Umung Khomutso are, she wants it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I'm on trigger mode. Before I turn over to the audience and open up the floor for questions, because I know you have a lot that you want to say. And thank you so much for all of the wonderful things that you are sharing in the chat. And thank you for staying with us. I'm amazed that we have so many people in this group at this time. This is Pella, this is peak hour. And you are with us in this incredible forum. I'm so grateful. I hand over to the audience and open up, I'd like to talk to you about what I really feel was the moment. The when you published Kanga and the Kangaroo Court, and it's not your only book. You've done so many beautiful books. You've written books about your journey into spirituality. You've written books that are about political commentary that link, your observations as a cultural practitioner, as a spiritual practitioner, with your very astute and detailed political mind. So you've written a range of books. You've authored 6 books, and you've written your dissertations. I mean, you're a prolific writer. But the obviously the book that is the stone that made the massive ripple in our country and in your life, certainly more than anyone else's, is Kanga and the Kangaroo Court. When that book was published, I remember, and 17 years ago now.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
When that book was published, I remember thinking, this is a test for whether we truly have freedom of speech in South Africa. This is a test for whether our Bill of Rights is worth its salt. And of course, we saw. With thank you so much, Tumelo. Tumelo had shared a link to the book published by Japana, and you can order it there. It's there in the chat for everyone to see. When this book was published, I mean, your life turned inside out. You had your organization, you like the government funding dried up. You were removed from your organization. You had to leave Johannesburg. You went back to the Lalis, went deep into your spiritual practices, and reinvented yourself. I mean, I think that moment was a watershed moment, and it continues to be. When we sometimes I think like trauma is like the way that we think about trauma, or our perspective on trauma, is kind of like how the rings grow around a tree.
Mm.
You go around it, and you go around it, and every time you go around it, as time passes, your perspective on it changes. um History in many ways has proven you right,
Yeah.
and continues to prove you right, and to our detriment, actually, because in proving you right, we are witnessing this deterioration, which you named and called, rightly so, and you were punished for it. One of the recurring patterns that I see with you, with so many women who I admire, from where na Pregs Govenda, Tenjwemtin, so Asara Shakur. I mean, you think of a powerful revolutionary, renegade, forward-thinking, healing, enlightened Black woman, and you will inevitably see a human being who is ostracized, who is isolated for being exactly who she is supposed to be on earth.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is twofold, as we segue to hearing everybody else's wonderful voices. I want to know now, 17 years later, as the rings around the tree, where, from your vantage point now as Dr. Matsilo Mutsei, with everything that has happened, what is your perspective on that book in your life?
I haven't read it.
That's a joke.
I haven't. Ever since it was released, it came with a lot of trauma.
Sure.
So I think the cycle will end when I read it. I glanced through it last week,
Yes.
and I was like, wow,
It's a
wow,
profound
wow.
piece of work, and
You
you
know,
are vindicated.
it's
I mean,
wow,
time has
wow, wow.
vindicated you.
So my reflection, um, if we kind of reflect on Tuesday as I was walking across the stage, yeah, I really was grateful for my resilience, for my tenacity, but I'm also always aware that nothing about me is limited to me as an individual.
Mm,
My individuality is always connected to the collective.
mm.
the collective which may still be living, or the collective that has passed on. Ritabile is here in the last year. Ritabile was my coach for some time, because it was also okay for me to kind of have someone put up the mirror for me.
Yes.
It's always important.
That's so important.
This is who what you look like now, and someone to reframe the things that I'm saying. So when I look back now, there's two ways to answer that. I had to be the one to write that book at the time.
Yes.
I had to be the one to lose house auctioned, car repossessed. I have lost count of the number of times that I have been evicted, you know, even from places where you only pay 500 Rand a month at the Lutheran mission house in Bushbuckridge. So I have lost count of the number of times. I was so good with packing the things in my house in 48 hours. If you came and said you are out, tomorrow when you come back, everything is packed. So I was a master of that. And there's a lot of trauma as well that I went through, that my kids went through. And this is like a whole thing. This is a whole conversation around Kanga. And I think what I'm going to do after this webinar is that I'll read the book. And when I have read the book, I can have another conversation at some point, because it will mean that, the cycle is complete for me. At the moment, I was only focused on surviving. I was focused on survival. But my transition is aluta discontinua. Struggle discontinues. The next step of my life has to be ease and effortlessness. So when you see me shining, don't say ngithwele. Right. You should know. I did not know her. I have worked for these guys. I have yeah, Tito says we'll share contents about the retreat. We're still working on it.
No, we wish you peace, and we wish you softness, and we wish you kindness and ease and abundance. Let it rain on you. You deserve, you deserve, you deserve. We all deserve. Let me end on that note. I mean, the chat is just fire. There are so many wonderful points, but I don't want to read what's already written. I want to give us a chance to hear, because we can read the chat. So at a later point, this conversation is being recorded as well. And many people in the group are echoing, welcome to soft landings,
Yes.
Baton.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As the generation behind me said, they are not the Mbokoto clan, that
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, Abadikeni,
Yeah.
Matapa for who, Ledre for man,
Yeah.
why?
Although now I'm Matilo, I'm the mother of the Litapa. Tilo is Litapa. That's also another. Tilo is Litapa,
That's a beautiful metaphor, though. But a stone can be so many things. Now it's the poet
That's
in me
true.
that's jumping out. It can be
Right.
many, 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 many things.
Yeah.
And even a stone is also vulnerable. I mean, a stone can be broken down by water over time.
Of course. Yeah. So ease is about water. So we should engage more with water. The softness, the power of water, the notion of what is commonly called soft power. I find it amazing. It kind of comes. I'm learning to embody it.
What
I
does it feel like? What does that soft power, feminine
it
energy, what
feels
does it feel like?
it feels attractive and sexy, and you feel yourself. And when you embody that kind of power, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You do not have to say to this one, I am powerful, or I'm much more powerful than you. You embody it in a way that herd of elephants carried their power,
Mm.
as they moved across the road. You embody it in that way. You acknowledge, you feel it inside of you. You feel it, but it's so strong that you also have to revere it. There has to be reverence to it, reverence to this power that you carry inside. I mean, that without you, the pyramids would not have been built.
Mm.
And when you have that knowledge, there's a way that you step out into the world,
You
like
move
those
differently.
elephants, like those elephants that I spoke about.
Mm, mm. Beautiful comments. Mandivunza says you are in your skin. Tutu says yes to feeling ourselves. Melusi Dlamini says these kind of conversations are needed in nursing and medical schools. There are so many things that were said here that are never given attention that impact birthing and
Right?
childhood. This discussion is healing. I'd like to give an opportunity for people to put your hands up and ask questions. I'm looking at this screen I'm on my phone, on my device. It doesn't allow me to see all 50 individuals who are in the room, but I'll do my best, and maybe with Dumelo's help, to acknowledge the hands that are up and to give you a chance, if you'd like to open your mic and open your camera and ask your question. Or if not, you're welcome to post your question in the chat and I'll happily share it with Dr. Matsilo Mutsei. How is the group feeling? Okay, good. Goodest. Okay, sharp. So let's see if you can. Oh, Duduzile Masuku raised their hand. Please, your question.
Of course, I will be the first one. I
I love that.
Dumelang,
Uyaphapha. That means uyaphapha.
Mamela, there's no way I am ever going to pass a chance to say something. I don't have a question. I have a comment.
Okay.
I have a comment for Dr. Mama. I call her Mama. And my comment is simple. That water thing you speak about, that easiness that you speak about, that community that you speak about, we are here for all of it. I believe that it is the community you spoke about as well. My heart is just so happy. I'm like, yes, there is no way you can do anything alone. We need each other, and this space is also proving that for me. So this has been so wonderful, and I just wanted to give thanks and gratitude and be like, that community, that water, that easiness. Ooh, I'm here for all of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okunsola says, this fed my soul deeply. Polite Chauke says, soft life upon you. Tumelo Mutaung has given us a link to the Indigenous Midwifery Retreat. You can fill in the form. It's in the chat. So when that comes up, you will be made aware. I think we have a question from Malebu. I see Malebu. After that, I see Mukhachi. And then there's two more, but they disappeared.
Ntweshane. That's Ntweshane.
Okay, and Tosha. Okay, yes. Let's go. Let's go. Malebu.
Hello, everyone.
Ah,
Hello. And hello to your person there. Hello.
I have a person. Me and God created something here.
I love that.
5 months later. Rea Leboga, greetings, Dr. Matsilo Mutsei, and hello, Lebogang Mashile. Thank you so much for this session. It has really revitalized me. The question that I have is, when you're going through the storm and the fire, it's easy to exist in this world of chaos and this world when things are happening around. Now, when you say you are in your soft and era of ease and you've landed softly, how then do you maintain joy and that softness when the world continues to burn?
That's a great
Thank
question.
you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. The answer is quite simple. The world needs your joy.
Mm,
The world needs your joy to transform. So it's necessary for you, even when the world is burning, not to feel guilty about being in a space of joy, because that's the space that you create best. And that's why I always say joy is our default. If we can all manage to get there and create from a place of joy, then we kind of contribute different energy into the world. But activism has taught us that you can't afford to be happy when other people are suffering.
hey.
You can help people who are suffering from a place of your joy. You don't have to be miserable to help people who are going through misery. It's okay for us to be at different levels. It's okay for us to work at different levels. And when people, like right now, I'm operating from a place of ease and peace. But when someone is in the group and is operating from a place of fighting and battle, it's okay. They're operating from where they are at. It's okay for them to express the rage and the anger and the pain. Right? It's okay for that to happen. I can't say that I'm over it. I can't say I'm these, you know.
And you must. I'm over it, so you must get over it now too.
Yeah. I understand that each of us is stepping out into the world from our own wounds.
Sure.
And depending on how much you have worked on your wounds, that changes. But it also depends on, there's some people who still want to come back. This is my last life. I've been hanging out on this planet many times.
You're done. It's the last gig.
I'm done. And that's why it's important for me to do my work, if to clean up my own shit, so to speak. It's important. And now that I'm in my 60s, it's almost like everything is accelerated. It's almost as if you don't finish the syllabus, the curriculum, you're going to come back, right? But it's also a very beautiful place to be in, my Lebo. But just step out from where you are at, and also be aware that you can basically be joyful and make a difference. You can be light and work with darkness. That's
Thank
what
you.
it is. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you so
what
much.
a
And
beautiful.
congratulations, Doc.
Thobela le kae na?
Re teng le kae? Bangene mo Africa.
Nna ke tla ke tshwere ditebogo ke re leina la lena ke Mashile, mošomo wa lena ke lwala. Ka nnete le re file dipheko tša go ikalafa re le maAforika. And one thing that I carry dear is the importance of sisterhood. And I would like you to touch on that sisterhood, community, and how it has carried you through. I remember this one time I tried to do a 9 to 5, and I was working as an administrator at a furniture shop, and there comes MTM. Are, Kiri, you look so familiar. Are, hey, do people still even recognize me? And I was like, yes, I
Imagine.
recognize you. And I hold that moment dear, that even in our not so happy moments, people will still recognize the work that we are doing. And thank you for continuing. But I would like you to touch on sisterhood and community, and not only being in the public eye in terms of community, but just to hibernate and recuperate, come back, ultimately come out
Yeah,
and then come back. Yeah.
yeah,
Ke a
yeah,
leboha.
yeah. You know, sisterhood does not even describe what you're talking about. It doesn't deepen the understanding of what you're talking about. I would like us to think about an African phrase. You know, we may not necessarily think about it now. Let's say that if I give you an example, letsema labasadi. When you talk about letsema, what is embodied in the notion of letsema is work, right? But collective work, contributing to one another's success. We live in a society where collaboration is not necessarily highly prized as competition. Even in our schools, the way that kids are graded, they're graded to enforce individualism. There's not much in our institutions where we are taught about the value of collectivism. So, yes, sisterhood, but I want us to also think about deepening that concept. But also, who is your sister? Your sister
Yes.
may be a stranger that meets you for a split second and tell you something and kind of revives you. Your sister may be like me when I was living in a mission house in Maveljan. Next to me was Mashile, who was raising, HIV orphans. And I went there because I didn't have running water. That's where I used to go and get water. And at that point, my sisterhood was elder rural women.
Wow.
I had meals there next door because I didn't have food. I had lunch, yeah, the runaway and pap, and that was my sisterhood at the time. And also sisterhoods changes as you evolve, right? It changes as you evolve. And when you're ready, also you attract sisters who are relevant to where you are at in your life right now.
Yes.
And also sometimes sisterhood, there are no sisters. Like in my case, feminists saying after me writing Kanga, they said, but what did you expect? Why did you even write that book? It was bound to happen. Okay. So where was sisterhood there?
Well,
There was
this,
no sisterhood.
I wanted to talk about this. Is it an essential, is isolation an essential part of having a calling?
Isolation is an essential part of spiritual growth, whether you have a calling or not. If you can master the ability to be alone and exist fully in isolation, that's a mark of spiritual maturity, because we live in a society where we live on likes, social media likes and
Yes.
approval and this
Yes.
and that. So we
Yes.
do not have an opportunity to be in isolation. So as much as my isolation has been painful,
Yes.
I look back at it, I'm like, I was in my own initiation.
Sure.
I was talking with my daughter 2 days ago. I lived alone in a mountain for 2 years in the dark, and you know what saved me is May Elsie, one of the farm workers, used to say to the guys around that I was once an MK, that my house is full of AK-47. If they come to my house, they'll shed blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what kept people kind of the criminals. I think the criminals were like, how come that this black woman comes and live here on her own in the mountain? I remember a white man, a white farmer around there knocking at my door. And as I opened the door, here's this white African woman, man saying that I heard that there's a black woman living here alone. I thought I should come and introduce myself. If you need anything, here's my number. So there's that as well. There's that as well, that I also connected in a different way to the Afrikaner community because I was in isolation and I was alone.
Mandy Arishi also needs a Elsie. I think a lot of us can do with a Elsie in our lives. We've got 3 questions from Nkwetane, Cindy, Lekomoto. I'd like to ask the group if, because we started 5 minutes late, we were giving people time to come in. Do you mind if we end at 7:05 so that Dr. Mutsei can answer all the questions? Okay, fantastic. I see some yeses. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you the floor.
Where's Ntesani?
Where is she? How? She's disappointed. Okay, let's go to Khomuto. Khomuto and then Cindy. Kekeleto, I also acknowledge you. Khomuto, the floor is yours. Oh, we can't hear you. Unmute your mic. Oh, I'm sorry, Khomuto Askis. Okay, Khomuto, write your question in the chat and I'll ask it. In the meantime, let's go over to Cindy. Cindy, what is your question, please?
You see, the mom Elsies of the net, they work for me. This is how it's done. Oh goodness, the happiness that I am right now, ne? First of all, greetings to Prof, because you know what? That's what it is. That is what it is. Yeah. I am so happy. I don't even have a question. I just have a comment. One of the first things that stuck with me that Dr. Mutsei said was love and justice when we were talking about her work. And she made a reference to say it is expressed through love. Justice expressed through love. Can you imagine? Like, I sat and basked in that. And Konamanje just said a nice line to say the pyramids were built for me. And on Tuesday, as you were walking across the stage, I was minding my own business, reading my own books. And what comes up is a phrase by Martin Luther Jr. about love and justice. And I'm like, the oneness that is happening right now, I don't understand, but I love it. So I just love everything that is happening here, and congratulations doesn't even cover it. I am just so happy. I feel like I'm the one who actually has this qualification, the happiness that I am. And that's all that I just wanted to say. I am so happy. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, what a beautiful
and you forgot to tell people that tomorrow there's another webinar where we're talking specifically.
I know, right? That's what I should have led with, right? I'm beside myself. Tomorrow, Dr. Matsi will be on our channel, Divine Conversations. And get this, we're talking indigenous birthing, but in the context of business, because there's so much pain in corporate. And what you were talking about the corporate womb, that is the platform that we've created in Divine Conversations, where we are saying, it's Divine Conversations. I don't know how I can share it.
Please share it in the. Please would you share it in the chat? Share the link.
Yes, I'll put a link on the chat. It is tomorrow evening because it's Friday, so we're going to start a bit late at 5, and we're going to have a nice chill session and talk about the corporate womb. in indigenous birthing. Like, I mean, the alignment of it all, I'm just in awe. Like, ke fellwa ke mathe. Thank you very much.
Share the link.
Kekeletso, are you there? Are you still there, Kekeletso, with your question? Oh no, okay, I think we've lost Kekele. So unfortunately, let me get into the chat and read some of the comments before I give you an opportunity to close, Dr. Mutsei. Okay, Mkhosan is back. Wait,
Yeah. Okay.
and we've got Puti as well. Okay, Mkhosan, please, the floor is yours. Yeah, we can't hear you. Yo, sometimes issues of network and
Yeah.
data.
No,
Shem,
interestingly, maybe you are on mute. Oh, what you can do is write the question in the chat.
yes, please. If you're struggling to connect, please write your question in the chat. Thank you so much. Cindy has posted the link to the event tomorrow night at 5. Oh, there we go. Homoto. Okay, you're back.
I bought the technology to allow me to speak.
And
Go
you're
on,
the
Anish.
first one who came. You have to hide.
Uh,
It's true.
evening, but Baba Holo evening.
Evening.
I won't waste time, but I just wanted to say, now I can't call you doctor. I've always called you Mamzo. From the first time we met, I've called you Mamzo. So, Kere Mamzo, thank you very much for opening yourself to us and for sharing this knowledge. And Oslebo, you said earlier, Hori, this is her phoenix moment.
Mm.
So I think your soft life is also your phoenix moment.
Nice.
It's a rebirth of who you are. So thank you very much and continue being this awesome teacher that you are. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Puti, the floor is yours.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say it's such an honor to be in the presence of such greatness and all the women in here, like everyone in this space. This is it's so beautiful. I feel held. I can feel the healing in this space. So, to Dr. Matilo, thank you so much for the work that you do. Since I've started following you, it's been, even for myself, it's been a learning curve. It's been a journey of healing. So, thank you, Shlolo Sabakoni, for the work that you do, for being the woman whose shoulders we stand on. I don't know, I'm overwhelmed. This is just so beautiful. So thank you again for this space, and may you continue doing the great work that you do, Raulebeleji, and we are learning so much from you. Thank you so much.
Bakoniwe!
Tumelo, you are online. Do you have a comment? Do you have a question? You wanted to say something?
Yes, just gratitude to Mem Matsilo. So in 2014, 2015, when I had a big spiritual awakening moment and my gift as a healer was coming online, the person that I found was you.
Mm.
Like, you're the first person I found.
Mm.
I often struggle with words to express to you what you mean to me and what you have meant for my journey. The current body of work that I do today as a healer, it was born in our circle of conversations with my womb.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I literally landed on your hands as somebody who had the gift of being a healer. And no words can come close to thank you. Like when you graduated, it was as though I'm the one graduating. Somebody was saying this year, I even wrote on Facebook, I'm like, what do you do when you're day one?
mentor and teacher graduates with a PhD. Like, I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm here in Botswana. Who do I tell? So.
So,
Hey.
so Tumelo, can we organize that we visit you at some point in Botswana and come and do some work with you?
Yes, please.
This comes out of this. So we'll go to Botswana at some point and to honor Tumelo. But you didn't tell people that you used to harass me so much. Like like Mematilo, this, Mematilo, this, yeah, I was harassed.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm carrying trauma.
But Shem, in so many ways, I wouldn't be here without you. Even when I didn't have mentorship this side, I would have to travel all the way to Joburg to Gauteng, to sit at your feet. And so, I deeply celebrate this for you. I celebrate with you. And yeah, I'm never really leaving your side. I always follow you wherever you go, even though I'm no longer harassing you as before. So
thank
you so much.
The thing about asking for someone to hold your hand is that you're also gifting that person.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right? You are gifting that person. So in a way, when I hold someone's hand, I also grow because I recognize my responsibility as someone who's holding space for someone. And it teaches me to be vigilant and also be compassionate when I do that kind of work. So anybody who comes to me for advice, for whatever, I take that as a gift. That they come to me. I mean, the thing about teaching is that it's never one way, especially around issues of spirituality. There's a lot that you know that I don't know. So when we work together, it's more like a sharing, of knowledge and wisdom rather than me just, telling you this and that. From the chats already today, the earlier chats, the earlier comments show you that this is a room full of wise people. And each of us have a lot to teach. So thank you.
Oh, before I give you an opportunity to close for us, thank you so much, Tumelo, for that. That was beautiful and heartfelt. I want to ask Dudu to give us our last question, comment, and then I'll hand over to you, Dr. Matsilo Mutse, to close. Dudu!
Dumelang.
Hey.
Likai bathong. I did have a question, but I was too afraid. I was too shy. And now my question, so everybody, no, there was something that got stuck with me when you were talking about, when Matsilo was talking about the fact that she went to see like a healer to deal with some trauma that happened in her childhood, basically the rape. And that she was advised, Hori, she should come with that person, with the perpetrator. And that if you don't go through that, ritual of getting through the trauma, that Ntozahaho will not be okay, or something like that, something to that effect.
Yeah.
And my question was, is that something that we all need to do for our things to be okay in this life?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it.
Yeah. Tutu, firstly, it's not something that we all have to do. All our paths are different. We have different kinds of relationships with the spiritual world. Number one. Number two, you can also say no to your ancestors. I know
Yo,
I'll get into
dankie.
trouble. I'll get into trouble for saying that. I say no to them all the time. I mean, I'm constantly negotiating. Although sometimes they that I'll forget about the negotiations, right? But essentially they know they chose me. That's and
Yes.
right, and therefore I'm the right candidate.
Yes.
Right.
And also that my aunt existed in a different era, right?
Right.
And I exist in a different era. I had, for instance, I have misgivings about organized religion, and she was leading a church.
Wow.
So it's okay for us to have different views,
Okay.
Yes.
because we
Yes.
form our kind of subjective relationships with our spiritual world. We
Right.
should also be careful not to package our ancestors as this and this and that. It's almost like the same as this God who is somewhere in heaven, who is always carrying a whip,
Yes.
who's misbehaving. And as soon as you misbehave, you get it. Now, my relationship with my ancestors is a relationship of love.
Right.
That's my relationship. Even when I say no to them, I say no to them from a place of love, right?
Right.
So it's up to us to craft a relationship that feeds us, that feeds you as an individual. And obviously, as you grow as a spiritual being, that relationship also changes.
Right.
It doesn't stay the same.
Right.
So I'm wary of the notion of, if you don't do this, you're going to get into trouble. They always all the time.
Because re
So
godile jwalo, re
Ah.
godile with that fear gore, yeah, when you said no, so that's why it was how this had my handle.
yeah,
You said no, that's why u divorced.
yeah,
You said
yeah.
no, that's why how sabona matlho tsamaile.
Yeah. Yeah.
There could be some truth in that certain choices that we make will come with repercussions.
Right.
But when you make that choice, only aware or that is what might happen, or I know that this is what might happen, but I'm going to still choose it anyway,
Right.
right? And also our ancestors are depending on us to heal ourselves at a deeper level. Our
Right.
ancestors are trumps, you know.
Yeah.
They are waiting for us to heal,
Mm.
so that we heal generations. And this is part of the work that we're doing. Intergenerational trauma. Earlier I said about the departed. Our departed are traumatized because of the life that we led, the trauma that we went through as descendants of the oppressed people of the world.
Yeah.
So there's all those elements. But also remember that some of you might want to come back, right? And if you want to come back, you don't have to finish the whole syllabus. If you want to come back, you can deal with what you can deal with now and say, okay, this I'll say it when I come back.
Yo.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Thank you so
Ricky
much.
says there's also readiness. I like that, Ricky. You are ready to do what you can absorb now.
Right.
Woo.
It's okay.
My God, so many t-shirts here, so many mugs, so many t-shirts.
As you heal, as you grow, as you
Yes.
become more enlightened, you absorb more, right? The devil is coming back as a singer. I hope it's not wooden mic stuff, right?
Askabimba.
Please
No.
allow me to say, ke le leboga go menagane from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for doing this for free, mahala. You are
Siyaglava.
too generous. You are too generous. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. I mean, the thing about it is that if you want to receive, you must first give. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Oof.
So this is a cycle. It's not mahala. The cycle will emerge
Uh-huh.
as time goes on. But you
Yeah.
must give so that you can receive.
Yeah. I'm just saying this to say next time I will pay.
Okay.
I
So
will pay for this. Honestly,
yeah.
this is
Are
worth
you
so much therapy. I will pay. You know,
is the house interested in regular forums like this? Would you be
you're not
interested?
count me in. Count me in.
Okay.
You can have, instead of giving my money to some white woman over here who doesn't have no clue what I'm talking about, I would rather give my money to Dr. Matilo. You know,
Yes.
seriously.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I mean, also what we can do after this is when we send you emailers, we'll find out how many of you wants to be part of a coaching session,
Yes.
which
Right.
can be paid for. We can do
Yes.
one a month.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We can do
Because
one a month.
the
Beautiful.
topics that were raised here, each of them could form a part. I mean, we could have a whole 2 hour conversation on Intwaso.
Exactly.
We
Right.
could have a whole
Exactly.
2 hour conversation on birthing. We could have a whole 2 hour conversation on healing the womb, the corporate womb. I mean, any one of these issues that have come up.
I think
Yeah.
stable.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not
So
Wow.
Tumelo, what we might want to find out as we send the email is people can also, based on what you have experienced during this webinar, is you can help us identify topics that you want.
It just means you're not anxious.
Okay, Mandy?
Mandi kupo mute mic ya how
Yeah.
to. Sorry,
Yes,
excuse.
yes, yeah.
Okay,
So I'm
thank you.
just saying what we can do is also rely on you to identify topics that emanates from this webinar, so that it's not just a once-off.
Yeah.
We unpack things, say until the end of this year. And part of it could be at the end of the year, we can even plan a get together, physical.
Yeah,
space.
that would be amazing. We was just posting that already. It would be so amazing to see
Yeah.
these people in the same physical space. I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm turning 65 at the end of this year, guys. So we could work on something around that birthday.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
What a
Thank
light
you.
and an
Bye-bye.
inspiration you are. Thank you, Tutu. Thank you, Tutu. I want to give you a chance to close, Dr. Mutse. And also to thank you. I mean, the I wish I could read each and every single comment in the chat. That I have read them. I wish I could read them aloud so that you could hear these affirmations that are being showered upon you, and also so that you can feel the urgency, necessity of the work that you are doing. This is also what makes you so dangerous to the establishment and to those who have tried so hard to destroy you but can't. Instead, they turned you into a phoenix. This is what makes you so dangerous, is because what you inject into the space is absolutely essential. It is potent. People respond because we need it. So, I mean, I'm so thankful that you gave me the responsibility of convening this discussion. It has been my absolute pleasure and delight and dream. I love you so much. And I'd love to give, and thank you to everyone who joined us. You guys have been amazing. I can't believe you're all still here. Okay, links have been shared in the chat. Make sure before you leave, Hori, you check the chat to get the link that you need to the birthing course and to to Cindy's link to her event tomorrow and other links that Tumelo has shared as well. Make sure you check out Africa Ekalafe, the website, and get all of the details for the course. Dr. Mutse, I want to give you a chance to close, please.
Okay, I'm going to close with another poem called I Finally Found the One. I finally found someone No more drama of breakups, fear of being cheated, angst and deceit, lies to seduce, plotting to own, slashing of tires, smashing of windows, sleepless nights, endless calls, heart torn apart, mind turned to beast. I finally found someone. No more kicking and screaming, yearning or yelling, slave for affection, for approval, begging to be loved. I finally found the one. No room for pay, no price to pay. My love for me is free.
Woo! Amen.
I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, for
Wow.
honoring this. And one of my greatest lessons in this lifetime is to master and understand what love is. So spaces like this gives me a laboratory, provides me with a laboratory to learn and understand what love means, to operate from a place of love. So thank you.
That's our retreat, the Love Laboratory.
Okay. You see when you work with poets, that's what happens.
Oh, we love you. We love you. We appreciate you. You instill life in us. You show us. You are a compass constantly pointing towards what is better, what healing looks like, what progress looks like. We are so thankful for you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for the Love Laboratory. And I want to thank everyone who's involved within Africa Kalafe. I mean, online we have Dumelo, who you know is here. But I mean, there's a whole lot of other people that I'm working with. And my daughter was saying, the rest of your team is young. And I thought, yeah, it's a great thing because, I mean, some of my views of the world may be archaic. So it's for young people to say, no, we are not doing that, you know. So I'm grateful to the whole team, my kids as well. My two sons, Kakeho and Nkgopotse, and my daughter, Halalelo, who are continuing to parent me. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for my kids. One thing I'm blessed with in this lifetime is great parents and great kids. So, yeah, thank you.
We send love to the people who love you and who hold you up because you hold us up. We appreciate you. And thank you to everybody who's been a part of this conversation. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Please, before you leave, before you log out, go into that chat and get the links that you need as a link. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye, bye bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for being here.
Not so fast.
I'm seeing people. Ricky.
Break
Hi.
one. No one will be hanging out with Pommy today or